Good Thursday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. Now let's get to your headlines. New this afternoon, Governor Walz says final work on a budget deal for Minnesota should be done today. That would allow the governor to call a special session so lawmakers can pass it. It's now been 10 days since the legislative session ended without a budget.
Look, we're late in the process, we know, but I still say it's positive, it's moving forward. I think there was every reason to believe that we know that the end of May is still the target, and here we are. So I hope we have more news over the next few hours, but really productive. And the legislators are working hard.
Once again, our state lawmakers are running up against a deadline, and this time there's even more at stake. After failing to complete the budget during last week's legislative session, they must now finish by this Sunday or state employees will start getting layoff notices. Danny Spiewak brings us the latest from the Capitol.
After the legislative session expired May 19th without a budget, lawmakers formed working groups to resolve conflicts between the House and Senate on various spending bills.
We have to finish this. We don't have a choice. That is what Minnesotans expect us to do.
9 days later, though, there's still no budget.
And it's just time to bring it home.
On Wednesday night, Governor Walz will meet again with leaders from the narrowly divided legislature, where the DFL holds the Senate by one vote and the House is tied.
It's been a real challenge because basically every single legislator has a veto, and that means building a coalition.
But these coalitions are fragile, especially with the House working under a power-sharing agreement. In the higher education bill, for example, lawmakers agreed to final numbers by signing their spreadsheet, but still haven't resolved a policy disagreement over how University of Minnesota regents should be appointed. The transportation bill is stuck on a provision over greenhouse gas emissions. And in the taxes bill this week, DFL Senator Ann Rest expressed frustration after House members rejected their own offer.
The motion fails. Let it be known to our leaders that the House cannot even accept their own proposal. Now we will take a recess.
We just wanted a recess.
With several bills still not finished, lawmakers are now at risk of missing another deadline. If the budget isn't in place by this Sunday, June 1st, the state will be obligated to send layoff notices to employees, warning of a potential government shutdown in 30 days.
I think the most important message we can send is please do the job you were elected to do and do it in a timely manner.
Union leader Bart Anderson represents thousands of state employees.
Our members are left feeling like they're pawns in a political game, and that's not what they were employed to do. They were employed to provide vital services to every Minnesotan every single day of the week.
However, the legislature did clear a major hurdle this week by finishing the Human Services bill.
We tied up what I considered to be probably the biggest one.
Once all the bills are finalized, Governor Walz says he'll call a special session, but it's still not clear if they'll make that June 1st deadline to avoid layoff notices.
We do work up against deadlines all the time. I'm not happy about that, but it's the nature of it. But we're going to get it done. So if they go out, there will be letter of the law to get that done, but it's not because there's not going to be a budget.
Also new today, emergency officials say the three main wildfires burning in northern Minnesota are mostly out. The Munger Shaw, Camp House, and Jenkins Creek fires have scorched tens of thousands of acres of land, but all are over 90% contained. Meantime, there's an emergency closure in the Boundary Waters Canoe area while the Horse River fire is being knocked down. It's between Jackfish Bay and Lower Basswood Falls near the Canadian border. That area is so remote that fire crews can only get in by canoe or by rappelling from a helicopter. Officials say there have been close to 1,000 wildfires already this season. They expect that number to go up. New today, the Trump administration is immediately appealing a federal court's ruling blocking most of the president's sweeping tariffs. Trump implemented the tariffs without Congress by invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The legal team for the plaintiffs in the case argued the administration interpreted the law too broadly, and the court agreed, ruling Trump didn't have the authority to impose the tariffs in the way he did. Now, this could have major trade impacts around the world. Mark Stewart has details from Beijing.
We've heard so much from Wall Street about their frustration and the concerns relating to tariffs. Now we are seeing this lawsuit, this injunction. It was the result of a lawsuit, though, that was filed by smaller companies, you could argue Main Street companies, in the United States, including a winemaker. Let me update you on where things stand because we've seen so many twists and turns over recent weeks. Right now, a 30% tariff on Chinese products has been halted. These were in place as part of that trade truce with the United States and China as the talks were going forward, but that has now been halted, those tariffs at least. The 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, halted. A 10% tariff on most goods coming into the United States, halted. What remains, though, is a 25% tariff on automobiles, steel, and aluminum. That's of great interest to Europe, as well as many countries here in Asia, which are very heavily automotive focused. So those are still in place. The White House says it's appealing this. As that moves forward, we are getting some response from the Chinese government here in Beijing, very much, though, along lines of the past, saying that there are no winners in a trade or tariff war. I'm Mark Stewart, CNN in Beijing, China.
Happening this afternoon, opening statements in the Derek Thompson murder trial. He's charged with several counts of third-degree murder and criminal vehicular homicide for a high-speed crash in Minneapolis that killed 5 young women. But a major ruling could make this case more difficult to prove. Judge Carolina Lamas is allowing Thompson to try to pin the blame on his brother DeMarco by claiming DeMarco was the one driving. Now, you may remember last year, Thompson was found guilty on federal drug and firearm charges in that crash. Now, he claims the drugs and the gun belonged to his brother. The judge also ruled the jury will not hear about the drugs or the gun, saying they're not relevant to the charges. A heads up to Bloomington drivers, major closures are coming to 494 this weekend to complete bridge reconstruction. Starting Friday night at 10, 494 will be closed in both directions between Highway 100 and Highway 77. The ramps along that stretch closed 2 hours earlier at 8. Detours will be in place through 5 a.m. on Monday. Further south, another major projects now underway in the South Metro along Highway 169 in Jordan. And as Jessica Hart explains, when it's all finished, it will address decades of concerns.
25 years of talk has turned into action. Construction crews are working on a new interchange that will change the way people travel through Jordan. This is the kind of noise elected officials want to make.
This is exactly the kind of disruption that we can and should celebrate.
Democrats and Republicans working together to fund a new interchange in Jordan that connects Highway 169 to Highway 282 and County Road 9.
Safety is paramount, to say the least. That's an understatement.
Chair of Scott County Board of Commissioners Dave Buer says this has been an area of concern for decades.
I run this on a regular basis, proceed with absolute caution, because you just never know. You've got highway speeds on one end, coming out of a town on another.
The project will also repair the Highway 169 bridge and build a pedestrian tunnel.
There were countless days that we had kids walk into school with their feet wet. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And eventually kids shared that, well, they're cutting under the bridge and they fall in the creek.
Citizens on the other side of that underpass were literally running across the highway there.
Officials say this project will also give the area an economic boost. They say half of the state's agricultural product travels on Highway 169. Another reason why elected officials are making noise. The kind of noise that improves lives. Construction started in April and is expected to wrap up in 2027. In Jordan, Jessica Hart, KARE 11 News.
You have to see this. Some truly incredible video from Switzerland showing a small village there being buried under a collapsing glacier. Now you can see the huge plume of dust shoot into the sky as part of the mountain comes crashing down. That town had been evacuated over the last several days because of a smaller collapse, so no one was hurt. However, one person is still being reported missing this morning. As we head to break, Gophers fans get excited. The team just released their 2025 football schedule. They open the season against Buffalo at home on Thursday, August 28th, and they've got 2 major Friday night games against Nebraska on October 17th and Oregon on November 14th. Stick with us. We have more news and weather coming up after the break.